I think what it clearly represents is it speaks to our place in the territory and a long history and the connection to that territory. Often we use the phrase time immemorial, and it really means as long as we can remember, and our ancestors tell those stories, that history and that connection to the territory. So I think this is the evidence of that. And, you know, it's something we've always known, but certainly when you have the opportunity to protect those things, that's a part of your history, that's a part of your past that you're protecting, and I think that's important. So I think it's a clear indication, obviously, of our history. Not that we needed that validation, that our history is a long one, but certainly I think in terms of the time frames of some of the pieces that are there, clearly speaks to that long history that we talk about. So it's always good to be able to demonstrate that.
And you think these artifacts will be protected now?
Yeah, that's the piece that we're working on now. We're moving forward with the town to establish a good protection for those artifacts and the site itself. So those are things we are working towards, and I think that's the real benefit, not only to Saugeen but to the town as well. And it shows how two parties can work together. And I think really one of the undercurrents of this is about relationships and how to build good relationships. And we often forget the history we have, and it's not a good history. It's a dark chapter.
Right.
We know that, but you know, we're in a different time, and if we just take the time to sit down and work together and talk, we realize we have a lot more in common, and we have vested interests. And I think that's kind of the things I'm proud about. One of the things I'm proud about through this process is seeing that relationship grow. Because you know, the town could have taken an adverse position, we could have taken an adverse position, but the focus was always on, well, wait a minute, no, we can come together and do this right in a way that protects Saugeen's interests and it allows the town to continue to doing what it does, and we can all live together in that harmony. And I think that's one of the things I'm proud of about this process.
Something that Warden Smith has talked a lot about is that engagement protocol. Have you noticed a lot of progress in that area?
Well, we're working towards that. I think, you know, we tend to sometimes get caught up in the legal, technical definitions of what is consultation, what is accommodation, and we forget really what the objective is, what the court was trying to get at through the Supreme Court of Canada decision was that there is a history, and that history needs to be reconciled. And until Canada works towards doing that, we're always going to continue having these conflicts, we're going to continue to have these problems, and these things can't be achieved in a courtroom. These things happen through proper dialogue, through the building of stronger relationships and lasting relationships. So I think that's where our focus is, and that's preserving that relationship and actually building even a stronger relationship moving forward. And once you get down to the root of all the issues, you realize sometimes that you have a lot in common as opposed to not having things in common. And I think sometimes if we don't take the time to have that dialogue, but we allow our past to define us and our relationship, then becomes a challenge. And I think we miss out that an opportunity. So, you know, there's a lot of areas where we get involved in different files where we have a lot in common. Protection of the environment, protection of the water, protection of the resources, and maintain that relationship to our territory. Those are things that we tend to have a lot in common on. So I think it's about sitting down, working those issues through. So we're confident that through a little more work and effort, we'll get there.
What's the next stage in this process in building this working relationship?
Well, I think ideally we'd like to have that protocol in place. I think you need some guidance. Really, in many ways, we're all feeling our way through this. You know, the concept of reconciliation, that's a lofty concept. And I'm sure it's a challenge even to figure out, well, what does that mean? But what it doesn't mean is you take adverse positions, you go off to court and you let a judge work it out, or you do something else. That's not how reconciliation is achieved. And I think the next stage of moving through that reconciliation is trying to get that protocol in place, trying to find areas where we have those common interests and let those be our strength as opposed to kind of forgetting and get distracted by other issues. So let's build on our strengths and try to way forward for that.
Any chance of doing the same thing with Grey County, even though you don't live in
Grey County has expressed interest, and I think that's something we're going to explore. And I think confident that we can get through that process as well. So anytime you have that opportunity, you want to try and do that. That's I have to say it's a different message than you hear probably in other places. Not everyone is going to take that position because history and history has taught us some valuable lessons, but also if we're going to move forward on things we're going to have a confidence in, the things we need to have confidence in, you can't do that unless you're prepared to sit down and work through those issues. So we're hoping that that opportunity does exist for Grey County as well. I know they've expressed interest. That's something certainly we're interested in as well.
Great.
With the sewers at the north end of the river now, there's the possibility of development there. Is it something you have to keep an eye on?
Well, it's certainly something we will look at. We certainly would look at that moving forward and making sure that we can build on the successes we've had here. I don't think it's something the town's just going to do carte blanche and just, this is going to happen. And I think we've learned through that there is a process now, and there's a process that starts with a dialogue and sitting down with the leadership in our communities and the people within our communities to work through those issues. And who knows, we may have vested interests in even looking at how we could expand our infrastructure. And you got to remember, it's only within the last few years our community got clean water, and that was a very, very lengthy process, 40 years in the making. Initially that was a standalone project, and then somewhere along the line the department got cold feet post-Walker and realized, maybe it's more cost effective to build a relationship between the municipality and the First Nation. So it's only within the last few years that's happened, and that's pretty alarming when you think that we live in one of the wealthiest areas in the country. Our First Nation is just now gaining access to clean water for its members. So infrastructure, the need to develop that infrastructure, those are all needs that exist within our community as well. And I just want to look at creative ways you can do that. And resources, they're not limitless. And you have to. The challenge is always making sure you have the resources to do those types of things. And I think wherever you can form a strategic relationship, then you look at doing that. So that's obviously one possibility. And who knows? Maybe that's somewhere we go to in the future. It's hard to say. We haven't had that discussion.
Thank you very much.